Hello, this is cjhoyle, and welcome to day 14 of my solo canoeing adventure on the Trent-Severn Waterway. Today is the last day of my trip, and I'll be starting from here at the bottom of lock number 1 and canoeing out to the mouth of the Trent River into the Bay of Quinte, and then paddling through the Murray Canal over to the bay where Presqu'ile is, where I'll be getting picked up. Today is the final day of my trip, and because I don't have any locks to go through, since I've already gone through all of them, I'm able to get started nice and early. So I woke up this morning at 5:45 and hoping to be in the water by at least 7 o'clock this morning. So the time is now about 6:30 and things have gotten a little bit brighter now, and I've been working on getting the tent all packed up and ready to go. Alright, so I've got the tent packed up now and all my gear strategically placed along the dock there. Now all I have to do is get the canoe in the water and load everything in and begin my journey heading down the Trent Canal. Alright, so I've got everything loaded into the canoe, and so begins my final day of paddling. So long, Trent-Severn Waterway. It's been a lot of fun. There's the big paper mill there, and there's the CP rail bridge, both things that I saw on my walk yesterday. I just paddled underneath of the Dixon Drive Bridge, and soon I'll be passing under the Dundas Street Bridge. There's the old clock tower, and here I make my way out into the Bay of Quinte. And there's a sign behind me welcoming me to Quinte West, and the gateway to the Trent-Severn Waterway. So here in the bay I'm going to be turning to the right to head over towards the Murray Canal, but I'm going to be paddling through this marina here first to take advantage of their break wall here to get some shelter from the wind. So there you can see out into the Bay of Quinte. The Bay of Quinte is part of Lake Ontario, but the bay itself is far bigger than any of the lakes that I've paddled through on this trip. So I'm glad that it's a relatively calm day today. There definitely is some wind. Thankfully the wind seems to be pushing me exactly in the direction that I need to go. But I'm still glad that there's not a lot of wind, because if there was, really high waves, it would certainly make things challenging. So my plan is I'm going to paddle out through that gap in the break wall there, and then I'll be following that shoreline over there until I reach the Murray Canal. The Murray Canal is an outlet that was man-made to allow boats to be able to get a shortcut from getting out of the Bay of Quinte if they were heading in the west direction, because the Bay of Quinte, the outlet is on the east side, and if I had to go all the way around today, that would probably be like, an extra 50 or 60 kilometers compared to what I'm actually planning on doing. So there's one final look at Trenton before I make my way around this corner here and head to the end of the bay. I can see an island there. That's called Indian Island. I think I'm actually going to change my plan and paddle out towards there, because the problem is if I follow the shoreline, there's sort of these long piers that extend from the shoreline, and if when I get to the Murray Canal, I'll have to paddle all the way out and around them to get in. So I think it's better if I sort of triangulate and make my way across to there, and then I can go straight into the canal. So there I've just about paddled to that island, and now I'm going to make a right turn and start heading over this way, because I can now see the entrance into the canal. There's a red triangle and a green square, which is the indicator for going through a channel. So now that I can see that, I'm going to head that way, and as you can see, the waves are going to push me exactly in that direction. It's quite a bit windier out here than I had imagined, but it's still not nearly as windy as some of the other days when I was out and I could actually see whitecaps on the waves. So as I get closer to the entrance to the canal, I should mention that all this land over to my left, that's part of Prince Edward County, which is a long peninsula that sticks out from the land, and that's what creates the Bay of Quinte. But when the Murray Canal was built, it actually effectively turned Prince Edward County into its own island, because it's now no longer directly connected except for bridges. Alright, so here I've reached the entrance into the piers of the Murray Canal. The piers actually stick quite far out into the bay, and my guess is that the reason that they're here is to prevent the big waves that are coming across the bay from going into the canal and keeping the canal kind of calm. So there's the sign welcoming me into the canal, and you can see that they've signed it as part of the Trent-Severn Waterway. I thought it was separate, but I guess they're connected together in a certain way. So as I've been hoping, the canal is much more calm and sheltered from the wind. So I've now reached the first of 2 swing bridges that I'll be going underneath of. This one's called the Carrying Place Bridge, and that's because there's a community called Carrying Place, which is just over that way. And the reason Carrying Place gets its name is because before there was a canal here, when the indigenous people who lived in this region wanted to get their canoes across, they couldn't go through a canal, so they had to carry their canoes and everything else across a portage route, which is over there. So I've already paddled 9 kilometers, and the time is now 9 o'clock, so I'm going to stop here on this dock and have my usual overnight oats breakfast. This is by far the coldest morning of my trip, so I put on my jacket and even my pants too. So back in the canoe I go, and underneath the Carrying Bridge swing bridge. Just beyond there's a foundation which looks like it's for another swing bridge. I'm guessing this was probably from a railway swing bridge that used to be here. Here's another old railway swing bridge which no longer operates, and the bed of the railway has been converted into a trail, a recreational trail called the Millennium Trail, and perhaps one day they'll get this bridge up and running again so that trail users will be able to cross here. So the Murray Canal is completely straight, so paddling through it is a little bit like going through a tunnel, but I'm still enjoying the scenery. Here's the remnants of another old swing bridge. This one used to be a road swing bridge. There used to be 3 road swing bridges across, but this middle one here was closed, and all that remain are the one that I went underneath of, the Carrying Place one, and the one that's up ahead, which is called the Brighton Road Bridge. One thing that surprised me about the Murray Canal is how wide it is. I was expecting it to be about the same width as some of the canals that I was going through on the Trent, but perhaps this was built to have a wider standard and also probably a deeper standard, considering this canal is being used by a wider audience, not just boats that are going on the Trent-Severn Waterway, but also boats that are just simply coming in and out of the Bay of Quinte. The Murray Canal was completed in 1889, which is more than 20 years ahead of when the Trent-Severn Waterway was completed. Alright, so I've now reached the Brighton Road Swing Bridge here, which I'll be paddling underneath of. It'll be the last bridge that I'll be passing under on my paddle today, and the last bridge of my entire trip that I'll be riding underneath of. I actually rode my bike across this bridge last May on day 2 of my Ontario Bike Tour number 3. On that day I was riding from Cobourg to Sandbanks Provincial Park, which is located in Prince Edward County. As you can see, this bridge is a lot higher than the last one that I went underneath of, and I think it's also quite a bit newer. One thing I'm also remembering is that when I crossed this bridge the last time, I sort of pulled over onto the side there to look at it, and I remember at the time the water level in the lake was very high, and that center median there where the concrete is, that was actually underwater. There's the first boat I've seen of the day, heading down the Murray Canal in the opposite direction, perhaps heading towards the Trent-Severn Waterway, or maybe just wanting to spend some time in the Bay of Quinte. Alright, so here I've just about made it to the very end of the Murray Canal. You can see that this end has some piers that stick out from it. Again, I think that's probably to keep big waves from making their way into this small canal. So now beyond there, I'll be paddling in Lake Ontario, but it'll be a sheltered area of Lake Ontario because there's a big bay that's sheltered by the peninsula known as Presqu'ile, which is also a provincial park, and the destination that I'm heading to is within that bay. It's pretty much straight ahead from where I am pointing the camera right now. There certainly are a lot of swans in this bay. Now that some of the clouds have lifted, I can see a blue sky, and it's turning into a really beautiful day. It's also warmed up quite a bit, so I've got my jacket off and also back to just wearing shorts. So up ahead I can see a lighthouse that's in the lake, and I'm heading towards that because my destination is sort of at the bottom of that bay there. If I zoom out, you can see straight ahead, that's the Presqu'ile Peninsula, and it wraps all the way around to here, and somewhere over there there's a gap that you have to get to if you wanted to go into the rest of Lake Ontario. So this bay is relatively sheltered because it's enclosed like that. I can see a few other big boats coming up behind me. As I get closer to this lighthouse, I'm now able to see the gap where you can get out into Lake Ontario. Alright, well I've reached that lighthouse up close now. So those 2 boats have passed me now, and I can see that they're curving around to the left. and probably the signed shipping lane that they're following actually curves and follows that peninsula before going out into the lake. You'd think that you could just cut across, but for some reason they've signed it so you have to do this big C curve. As I make my way further out into this bay, the wind has picked up a little bit, but once again I'm quite spoiled by having the wind directly behind me, pushing me exactly where I need to go. This community I'm paddling past is called Gosport. Here I'm going past the Municipality of Brighton's Bay Street Marina. So further down this shoreline there's a small bay with a lighthouse in it, and my destination is just over there, just kind of where the development stops and the trees begin. I can see a helicopter up there. I'm guessing it's related to the military in Trenton. It looks like it's one of the ones that has twin propellers. I can see that this end of the bay has lots of swans in it as well. And I'm also noticing that the water here is actually quite shallow, which kind of explains why the shipping channel takes such a long route. I guess they want to ensure that the big boats with the big keels can get out of the harbor or get out of this bay without getting snagged on the bottom. So just another kilometer or so to go, and the end of the trip is always kind of bittersweet. It's kind of a little bit sad that it's coming to an end because I've really enjoyed this vacation a lot. Alright, so here I've arrived at the Ontario Street Dock here in Brighton, and that means it's now time for me to unload the canoe for the very last time on this trip. So after unloading, I spent some time washing out the inside of the canoe, and then my dad arrived to pick me up. Today on day 14 I paddled a total distance of 21 kilometers, and it was a great day of paddling to end the trip. When I tally up my paddling distances from all 14 days of the journey, I get a total of 315 kilometers, or 196 miles. The total of my expenses from the trip was $411, which works out to approximately $29 a day. My largest expense was food from restaurants and groceries. I also spent $76 for a season's pass to use the locks with the canoe, which I consider money well spent, since it saved me from portaging a total of 35 times across the locks. The cost for camping on this trip was exceptionally low, since the price to camp at a log station was only $5 per night, and some log stations didn't even charge me. My only other expenses that I've recorded here are my bike share rental in Fenland Falls and my replacement sunglasses. This summary, however, does not include my transportation to the drop-off and pickup points. I was very fortunate to have my parents acting as my personal shuttle service and remote support team. I was also very lucky to have this excellent family canoe at my disposal to use for the duration of the trip. All in all, I thoroughly enjoyed this vacation. It was really nice getting to visit so many new destinations here in my home province of Ontario. I also enjoyed getting to revisit some familiar places, but experiencing them from a new vantage point. On many occasions I was completely blown away by the natural beauty of the waterway, especially first thing in the morning. The Trent-Severn Waterway is a really nice piece of infrastructure, and it's definitely a place I would recommend visiting. I hope you enjoyed joining me on this unique adventure. If you've watched this 14-day series all the way to the end, I'd love to hear what you thought about it in the comment section below. But until my next adventure, thanks for watching.